In about 10 days, Ross is gonna throw him away. I'm gonna be real with you, Meech. If Rick Ross, seeing what he did to you, because he knew what he was doing standing on the side of him, right?
Rick Ross just pulled off the biggest finesse in hip-hop, and Big Meech is paying the price.
I've seen a lot of posts about the Big Meech concert getting canceled. What I'm not seeing is anybody blaming Rick Ross for this shit. Nobody is saying, yo, Rick Ross, it's your fault.
The streets never stay quiet, and right now they're talking louder than ever about Big Meech and Rick Ross. What started as one of the most exciting comebacks in hip-hop has taken a sharp turn into a full-blown betrayal. Big Meech was fresh, out of prison, ready to reclaim his position in the game, and he linked up with Rick Ross, the so-called biggest boss in the industry. The two of them seemed unstoppable. They were making big promises, talking about movies, business deals, and a future that looked like it would put Meech back on top. Everything seemed too perfect because it was. Now things are falling apart for Big Meech in ways no one saw coming.
February 13th, the Big Meech Home benefit concert. It's gonna be iconic. Too many names to list, but let me salute some of the legends. Lil Baby, Boss Man D-Lo, 21 Savage, Sexy Red, Ricky Rose. Now, this the first time it's ever been done.
The massive concert that was supposed to mark his return, canceled. The million-dollar deals that were lined up, gone. His family, who was depending on those opportunities, is struggling. And where is Rick Ross? Nowhere to be found. At the time Meech needed him the most, Ross has disappeared. What really happened? How did Rick Ross go from being Big Meech's biggest supporter to becoming his worst problem? By the end of this, you'll understand exactly why Meech is furious. And trust me, you would be too. But before we get into all that, let's take a step back. Have you noticed anything strange about Rick Ross lately? That random shoulder injury that seemed to come out of nowhere? The way he's been dodging every single question about Big Meech? That's where the real story is hiding. While everyone was focused on the beef between Big Meech and 50 Cent, something else was happening behind the scenes that changed everything. 50 Cent, who has been keeping an eye on this situation, just reposted something from a real insider, someone who actually knows both Meech and Ross personally. This isn't some online rumor or wild speculation. This is from someone with direct connections to both of them, and what they revealed about Rick Ross completely exposes his real intentions. It turns out that what looked like Rick Ross supporting Big Meech was actually just a calculated move to keep himself relevant. Think about it. What better way to stay in the spotlight than by inserting yourself into a long-standing feud between hip-hop legends?
About the Big Meech concert getting canceled. What I'm not seeing is anybody blaming Rick Ross for this shit. Nobody is saying, yo, Rick Ross, it's your fault.
People who know the industry say that Rick Ross had this plan in motion from the moment he heard about Meech's release. Ross wasted no time. He reached out to Meech immediately, making sure to position himself as the guy who would help him make a huge comeback. From the outside, it looked like Ross was giving Meech a golden opportunity. He was promising a major comeback concert with all the biggest names in hip-hop, a chance to make a fortune right out of the gate. For Meech, this was more than just a show. It was supposed to be his way of rebuilding after spending nearly 2 decades behind bars. He needed the money, he needed the opportunities, and he trusted that Ross had his back. But then, everything started falling apart, and not just a little. It completely blew up in Meech's face. The man who had actually been supporting Meech for years, 50 Cent, stepped in and exposed what was really happening. And this is where things get even darker.
Who's on the internet talking about the Cuffy case and all that? Nobody even really gave a fuck. But now 50 talking about that shit, and everybody listening. Everybody listening, you heard? So, I just want to say, or I want to ask you, did you think that shit was a good idea in hindsight? Do you think it was a good idea?
According to industry insiders, Rick Ross was the one who pulled strings behind the scenes to make sure that the concert got canceled. And then, as if that wasn't bad enough, he made it seem like 50 Cent was the one to blame. He never said anything publicly, but the way he handled it, that was pure manipulation. One of the biggest voices in the game, an insider named Zip, had even more shocking details to share. He broke down some serious behind-the-scenes moves that completely flipped the narrative. Everyone knows Big Meech's legendary never-fold policy. The idea that he never snitched, never betrayed his people. Rick Ross was hyping it up, making
You let that nigga get the show canceled in Florida, B. That's kind of diabolical, you heard? 50, that's some bullshit. How you let the nigga get the show canceled in Florida? Let's get
it sound like it was something out of a movie. But according to Zip, that wasn't really anything special. It was just an unspoken rule of the streets. Not snitching doesn't automatically make someone a hero, but Ross was selling it as if it was the foundation of Meech's entire brand. But here's the real twist. There's evidence that suggests Meech might not have been as solid as people think. Some sources claim he made certain moves to cut his prison time short, and there are actual witnesses who could back that up.
Oh, yo, he never ratted on nobody. He official. What? Jailhouse full of paying rent. That never ratted, wouldn't dare rat. But they butt. What is you talking about? He official. That don't make you solid because you ain't rat. You shouldn't get no credit because you ain't rat. You wasn't supposed to rat. You don't get no check on his resume.
Whether that's true or not, it doesn't change the fact that while Meech is out here struggling, completely cut off from support and dealing with betrayal, Rick Ross is busy making money for himself. He's pushing his new cryptocurrency, Boss Token, while Meech's family can't even keep up with basic expenses. Now, you have to ask yourself, was Rick Ross ever really in Meech's corner? Or was Meech just another way for Ross to make himself look important? And then there's something even more suspicious. Rick Ross's sudden shoulder injury. The timing couldn't be more perfect. Right when things with Meech started going downhill, Ross suddenly appeared with this mysterious injury. It almost feels like a distraction, a way to shift attention away from all the backlash he's getting. But it doesn't stop there.
You see what I'm doing right now? My shoulder broke, but we still getting to the money. We still counting paper. This ain't a pump and dump, baby. We bossing all the way up. Get the address to the Boss Token.
Ross has also been running these luxury car shows all over the country, charging fans thousands of dollars for VIP access while people close to Meech are struggling. And here's the craziest part. People who have invested in Ross's business ventures, from Boss Token to the car shows, are already complaining that they've lost money. They're saying they have nothing to show for their investment. Now, let's get back to that injury for a second. There's a rumor floating around that Big Meech might have had something to do with it. Nobody's saying it definitely happened, but people close to the situation are whispering about it. Think about it. Meech spent 15 years locked up, only to come out and get played like this. It's not hard to imagine that he'd have some serious anger built up. But before you jump to conclusions, consider this. What if Ross is exaggerating or even faking this injury? What if this is just another trick to gain sympathy and avoid answering tough questions? Because when you look at Ross's history, especially what happened with the Larry Hoover benefit concert in 2022, a pattern starts to appear.
His name is Rick Ross, but not only that, this Rick Ross claims that his whole identity was stolen. Peep the beard, peep the bald hair, the selling stuff.
Ross has pulled this kind of move before. Back in 2022, he was heavily involved in a concert that was supposed to support Larry Hoover, a legendary figure in the streets. But when the event got canceled, Ross disappeared. He acted like he had no idea what happened, blaming it on the promoters. But the truth? Insiders say that Hoover's people were upset that Ross was using his name for publicity, just like he's doing with Big Meech now. At the time, Ross tried to defend himself, saying he was all about support and respect. But people in Chicago, where Hoover's influence is strongest, weren't buying it. And here's the real question. If Rick Ross could turn his back on Larry Hoover without facing any consequences, what made Big Meech think he'd be treated any differently? But let's break this down even further. How did we get here? How did a man as seasoned as Big Meech, someone who built an empire from the ground up, fall for one of the most blatant plays in hip-hop history? The answer is simple: desperation. After spending 15 years behind bars, Meech wanted to re-enter the world with the same power and influence he once had. He wanted the grand comeback, the lavish lifestyle, and the respect of the industry. And that's exactly what Ross preyed on.
Here's where things start to get wicked. Secrets start getting spilled. Rose says, Your Honor. Judge says, are you a kingpin? A Bausch, if you will. Rose said, no. The crowd goes, Judge said, the crowd goes silent. He goes, so what were you before you were a rapper? Jose goes, a correction.
Rick Ross knew that if he played his cards right, he could flip the BMF narrative in his favor. Think about it. How do you discredit someone like 50 Cent, a man who has a stranglehold on the BMF brand? You steal his closest ally. And that's exactly what he did. Ross came in with the glitz and glamour, promising Meech everything he wanted to hear. And when someone is fresh out of prison, trying to reclaim their status, those promises sound like gold. But let's be real, this was never about Big Meech. Ross didn't care about his comeback. If he did, he would have done something meaningful during Meech's time inside. He didn't. The moment Ross saw an opportunity to disrupt 50's grip on the BMF empire, he took it. And what did Meech do? He walked right into the trap, believing that Ross was genuinely trying to uplift him. The sad reality is, Meech lost far more than he gained. His loyalty to 50 was worth more than any fake promises Ross could offer. The industry is built on relationships. And when you burn the wrong bridge, there's no coming back from it.
Longest.
And that's your way of saying, Rose, let's put it to the side. I'm really a good guy. And I get it, but it ain't time for that yet. Because when I see your I don't hug him, I don't speak to him.
What 50 Cent do? Well, you see, it's not about what he's done to the people he's beefed with. It's about what he's doing to the people he's beefed with. Because you see, when you start beefing with 50 Cent, you beefing for life. He won't.
50 Cent isn't just another rapper. He's a business mogul with connections in every corner of entertainment. The opportunities he had lined up for Meech weren't just words. They were backed by real money, real influence, and real longevity. Now, what's left? The concert that was supposed to be his grand re-entry into the world? Gone. The film deal that was dangled in front of him? Dead before it even started. And worst of all, the credibility Meech spent decades building, tarnished in the eyes of many. Meanwhile, Ross is already moving on. He's not sticking around to clean up the mess he created. The moment he saw the backlash, he switched gears, trying to mend fences with 50. And what's Meech left with? Nothing but regret and a fractured legacy. The lesson here is simple. In this game, actions speak louder than words. 50 Cent proved his loyalty over 15 years, while Ross played the long con for a short-term win. Meech had a real support system, but he threw it away for a fantasy. And now, as the dust settles, it's clear, he backed the wrong horse. So what's next for Big Meech? Can he recover? Or has Ross's betrayal done irreversible damage? The streets are watching, and so is the industry. Let me know in the comments what you think about this situation.